And we are live. Welcome to the Turaco CreativeCast, where we talk about all things creative. I'm your host, Frank, and this is my co host, Anna. A little bit about myself. I'm a comic creator, I'm an artist. I'm basically just a creative, and you can find me on Instagram at Salazar Art Nation, also my YouTube channel. It's just look up Salazar Art Nation on YouTube. You'll find it, but I do have a link tree here, and there's a links in the description below. So all my stuff is on there. And let's see. Oh, you can't spell Turaco without A-R-T. That's art. And Anna, who are you? Why are you here?
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a space alien. Yeah, I'm a comic creator, and I do creative things and like Turacos and plants apparently.
Yeah. And Anna's actually the one who named the show. So, and you can
Well,
find out at yeah. Hold on. Sorry, Anna. You can find Anna's stuff in her link tree below. This show used to be on my channel, but we decided to do a dedicated channel. So if you're not subscribed, check out Anna's link tree. You can find her channel there. Subscribe there. You can also subscribe to me and my channel. All the descriptions are in the description. All the links are in the description below, so you can check those out. And Anna, you were saying you were talking about the name of the show.
yeah, it's named after a bird that is cute. That it's a Turaco, and you can't spell art without A-R-T, and there's A-R-T in the word Turaco. So it completely fits in a semi-convoluted way.
All right, and our special guest today is Jon David Guerra. He is the creator of the Nightmare Pro Wrestling, so we are calling this episode Monsters and Wrestling. And we're gonna talk about what he's doing and just talk about art in general and different projects or things like that. So, John, how you been?
Doing good. It's a little past my bedtime, but I'm hanging in there.
Okay. Oh, we got someone in the chats. Hey, Sideburns.
Welcome.
And this lady is here too.
I wonder who that is.
And you can find John on Instagram, and he also has a YouTube channel, but I don't think you've posted in a while, right, John?
Yeah, it's been a while. I haven't really posted stuff there in a bit.
Yeah, but you can see some of his stuff on there, so that's in the descriptions below, so you can check that out. But what we're going to talk about the most is Nightmare Pro Wrestling, which is John's his books. So, how many issues do you have already of that? Or
let's see. The original version of it I had been working on for a while, and I think that has like the original collected edition has like 6 issues in it, and this new one that we have put out, we're collecting it together just as a graphic novel together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So no more single issues. But if you want to count each match as an issue, I guess you could count them as another 6. But I also have like a couple of mini comics out too that have nothing to do with Nightmare Pro Wrestling. But but since we're talking about that, I'll just talk about Nightmare Pro Wrestling.
we can talk about anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have another mini comic called Ghost King. And that one's about a little boy that's able to summon ghosts, and he's hired to to solve like paranormal like crimes or activity or something like that. But I've only done one of those, so.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sounds cool. I know before we came on, and I was asking you about your inspirations and how you came across, doing Nightmare Pro Wrestling. So, Anna, you wanna like ask John again?
Yeah, you were talking earlier about your Halloween parties, and I was curious as to how that influenced your Nightmare Pro Wrestling stories.
Yeah, always loved Halloween. Always loved like Halloween episodes of stuff. Always been a fan of monsters. Um, I've loved pro wrestling since I was a kid, and there's a certain point. Like I've been drawing like comics since I was like little, and there was a certain point where I took it just like a little bit more seriously, and I was like, oh, I want to do this for a living. How do I do that? What kind of story can I make? And I'm like, oh, I love pro wrestling. Let me try to make a pro wrestling comic. And the actual first rendition was pro wrestling robots.
Oh.
But then I found out I don't like drawing robots. So then I was like, oh, I love monsters. Let's give that a try. So that worked out a lot better. And then the characters and the stories slowly evolved. And I just combined my love for monsters and pro wrestling together, and that worked really well.
Nice.
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, I remember when John started drawing Nightmare Pro Wrestling back years ago. For anyone who doesn't know who's tuning in, this is actually kind of a reunion. I haven't seen John in like a really long time, but we actually
we've known each other for a very long time.
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time. We lived around the same area, so the cities are like very, very close to each other. Like the way the cities are here, you just like walk across the street and you're in the next town. So it's like
yeah, my parents, like the house that I grew up in, there was literally like one city at a stoplight, and then the next city started like if you turn left on the road, it's like, oh, there's the next city just right there.
Wow.
And that's where I live right now. I live in Far, but if you just cross a couple of streets, you're in McAllen. So that's the next big city from here. So
now I have to ask. Frank just said that it was years ago that you started, but I gotta know how long do you think you've been working on this? Just comics in general.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you.
I don't know. I've been drawing comics like my earliest memory of me drawing comics. I remember being a kid and drawing a Spider-Man comic around the time. I don't know how long you guys have been following comics, but there was a time period where Spider-Man had cosmic powers.
Okay.
And I remember drawing a Spider-Man comic with Spider-Man with cosmic powers, and I had him fighting Superman. And I had to have been like, I don't know, like in elementary school or something.
Nice.
So yeah, that was back then. And then there was a few original characters that I used when I was a kid. I remember there was a super dog that I had created that I had done like 5 issues, and then I found out that there was this new toy at the Toys R Us, and it was like a super dog, and I was like, oh, how dare they take my idea, try to make money off of it. I was probably 12, so. But yeah, I've been doing this forever. Like I remember in high school, I wanted to either be a film creator, or I wanted to be a comic book creator. And I hate to say it was easier to become a comic book creator because making comics isn't easy.
Yeah.
But it was less expensive than going to film school. I'll just say it like that. Because comics is a medium, I do think it has a great benefit that movies don't have, but movies have their strengths too, right?
Mhm.
But so I decided to pursue comics. I had a plan of going to an art school. I was going to go to the Joe Kubert School in New Jersey when it just had opened up. But then that got a little too expensive. Then I moved up to Utah with my sisters, and then that's where I met my wife. And then I got married there. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back to art school. So we're like, let's move to Austin so I could go to the Art Institute. And then I get to the Art Institute, and I was already making these friends and kind of had like this following with the Nightmare Pro Wrestling comic. And they're like, hey, you know, you don't really need to go to art school. Like, I'm a professional artist, and nobody ever asks me like, hey, let me see your degree. Here, draw this for me. You know, it usually depends on how good your work is. And I'm not discouraging anybody to go to school if they want to go to school for art. Like, that's cool too, you know. Some people need that structure, I think. The Art Institute was too expensive, so I started to do it. I just started to create comics and putting stuff up online. Slowly started developing like a fan base, and then just started going to comic book conventions and all that stuff. And everything was going really well. And then things changed a little bit when I became a dad. But it's crazy how everything kind of evolved to where it is right now, and just kind of like adapted to the situation where and let me know if I'm talking too much.
That's why we had you on.
My role now is interesting because I've always wanted to be drawing my own comics, but now I'm in this role where I create the comic and I'm able to write it, but I am able to hire artists to do the comic, like to draw the comic. And when that first happened, I felt like a little lost, because I'm like, oh, my identity is creating everything, you know?
Yeah.
Like, who am I now as an artist? Accepting that and just being like, finding all these great artists and creating relationships with them and becoming friends with them and stuff like that. That was also very rewarding, and seeing what they could do and what they could accomplish with what little time I had now as like a parent. I was able to do so much more and get more done and have my vision happen, you know? Because the first set of comics I did, I wrote, drew, and colored all by myself. And each comic book issue took me a year. Mm-hmm. And these guys, like hiring out some artists, they did 6 issues, and it only took like 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
So, you know, the trade-off was there, you know. But and here I am now talking to you guys.
Judd is saying hello. Judd is one of our regulars. Yeah, and I remember I think you had just moved to either to Utah or to Austin, and I was still here in the Valley. Well, I still live in the Valley, but you had just started Nightmare Pro Wrestling. I think I just made a store or something. You were saying, hey, you donate. You can donate to my project.
Oh yeah.
So I remember, like I was one of the first donators.
Yeah, I think you might have been the only one, Frank. Actually, thank you for that. Yeah, I put that button there to see what would happen, and I think you were the only one that actually used it, and I appreciate it at that time.
Oh, good. I'm still waiting for my comic.
Is that what all of this had been about? You're talking,
yes.
get him on here.
I was like,
Secret
first, I need to become a YouTuber. Then I gotta get a co-host. Some master plan. No, I just remember that. I thought it was funny to bring it up.
Yeah, I could
Yeah.
send you guys one of the also like the new ones when we get that one out. I think that would be fun.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And no, that wasn't my master plan.
No, I know.
Oh, Judd has a good question. What is a good timetable for a comic? Is it by page? So yeah, I think he's asking like when you put something
Personally,
out.
if you're doing everything, for me, what it turned into was like I was publishing it as a web comic, and what I was trying to do is like I wanted it to exist. So when I was doing everything by myself, I had an idea of what I wanted to do and where the story was going, but I wanted it to exist. So I just threw it up online. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to commit to doing 1 page a week. And that was tough. But there were some weeks where I couldn't do it, but I was doing, quick outlines of the page and the issue of where it was going. And then, pencils, inking, coloring. And back then I had this small little laptop and little tiny Wacom tablet. And it was a lot harder. But I think the lesson I learned with that also is create like a bit of a backlog. That way you can be ahead of yourself. Give yourself some time and some room, and don't stress yourself out, because you can't forget that you're supposed to be enjoying this. This is what you want to do. But hiring an artist, I tried to think of it as like me being an artist. Like what would I want if somebody hired me, and the timetable that I would want to comfortably work in, being working on my own projects and being a parent and wanting to spend time with my family too, and all this other stuff going on in your own world, right? So I gave the artists 3 months to do pencils and inks, and they seemed to think that was more than generous. The only one that took longer was because he works on the DuckTales cartoon.
Okay.
What's going on right now? So his schedule was like full, like a lot. So he would be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, man. I need some more time." I'm like, "Oh, no problem." I just I didn't want him to feel pressured to have to finish everything. So I also kind of catered to his needs and each individual artist's needs. So he took longer. I believe he took like almost a year to finish his comic. But luckily, it was the last match. The last wrestling match, the last issue, if you will. So I hope that answers the question. If you're hiring an artist, give them a good amount of time and cater to their needs. And if it's you personally, give yourself enough time where you can enjoy the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and both Anna and I are comic creators. So we actually met on a Discord, a comic book Discord called AAA Creators.
Uh-huh.
And then you were talking about having a community, having friends and in the business that really help you out. That Discord has been that for us. I mean, so that's where I met Anna, and we've talked about back and forth stories and comics and things like that. So we ended up doing a show together.
That's cool.
But because of that Discord, we both have a story in an anthology book that just came out. You can get it on lulu.com. There's a description in the description below. There's a link to the Linktree 9 Comics. So anyone wants to check that out. So I got one story, and it's my Captain Courage story, and it's a character I've been working on for a while. So I got that in the first one, and like I was saying, you gotta give yourself time. I mean, we were doing a deadline, so I kind of just rushed in and like I can do this. So you do got we were saying before, yeah, comics is hard. Making comics is hard, but when you make it fun, it's less hard and it's less stressful. But you still got to put a lot into it. In the second one, where I got in two stories, and I've talked about this before on this show and on my own channel, and I talked to Anna about it like offline a few times. Or like there was one page that was giving me trouble where my tablet glitched and everything that I had on there was gone.
No.
The whole file, and I was saving like okay, make this line, okay, save, okay, make this save, everything.
Yikes. It's a nightmare right there.
Yeah, and I was stressing out. There's a lot of stressing out, and like I gave myself an anxiety attack where I had to stop during the attack. I was like, no, I'm not gonna freak out. Like it's like okay, I'm just gonna take it slow, and I end up finishing the comic. But so yeah, guys, take a break and make sure you have fun. That's
for sure.
Yeah, and we have oh, Judd. Yes, thanks. Also, I love the storyline in wrestling. So your comic sounds cool. Yeah, and Judd, you can go and check out this website, Nightmare Pro Wrestling. And and do you have something under like you have a book under, John, or what? What's on your website?
Yeah, we're finishing up everything, and we should be getting it published soon. The deadline was actually October, but with COVID, it kind of threw everything off.
Oh, yeah.
All the pages are done, but we're still putting the pages up. Like the next match starts next week on Wednesday, but we should have pre-orders for the book up pretty soon.
Oh wow, cool, nice.
So you got
Anna, do you have any questions, Anna?
Yeah. What are some of the challenges of crowdfunding or just funding your work in general, trying to become a professional creator?
That's a good question.
One of the hardest parts.
Yeah. Let's see, where do I start? I was a little lucky in my interests, like in wrestling, in pro wrestling. There's a very like big audience for pro wrestling, and the need for like original comics about pro wrestling wasn't being fulfilled at that time. Yeah. And every time I go to conventions, people will be like, "Oh, what? A wrestling comic?" And they just come up to me and we just start talking about wrestling. And there was that interest there, and I was like, "Oh wow!" Like I was surprised, like I was lucky about that, where I had like an original concept that people liked. So there was actually like some conventions where some friends of mine would be like, "Oh, I didn't do too well," and I rarely didn't do well at a convention, so that was nice. Online, things were like a little bit more different. I was experimenting with like some things like ads. But I don't like the way ads look. And this was back when I think using ads was necessary. I think things have kind of changed like now. Some of the bigger challenges now with the new book is we actually had started a Kickstarter campaign for it at the beginning. And it was more like a test to see what would happen, because we had me and my friend that are like working on it together to get it published. We wanted to see how people would react to it. Excuse me again. But we put a big number to try to get funded, and we didn't even get close to that number. But the people that did donate were really cool about everything, and they really genuinely seemed interested. So I thought that was cool. But I also have to remind myself that I kind of felt like I had to start like from ground one again with the newer version of the comic, because I hadn't been doing conventions for I want to say like I hadn't done conventions for like 4 years for a little bit.
Okay.
So I kind of had to start from ground zero and create like a new fan base and reintroduce them to everything and be like, hey, remember me, guys? You know, those that did stick by me.
Right.
And now the challenge is like trying to experiment with what works. There's new options now than there was like back when I was doing the original one. And I don't have any solid answers of like what works yet, because I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
Pretty much
But I'm sure there's a way to like fund and profit off of like your work online, because there's Patreon, there's still Kickstarter, there's IndieGoGo, there's all that stuff. A lot of friends of mine are on Patreon, and that seems to be working for them really well, which is something that I haven't done, which I'm like, what's wrong with me? I should be on there already. But yeah, right now I feel like I'm in a special case also with I hate to talk about good things about COVID, right? But like in the situation that we're in, my wife also is able to work from home now. So I'm kind of more of a stay-at-home dad comic book creator. So I kind of have to balance all that, and things seem to be working out where I don't really have to focus on the financial part of it, really, but still try to test things out and see what works. I don't know if that answers your question, but
that works.
Yeah. And like the good things about COVID, at least for people like us, we actually have more time now to work on our comics.
yeah, at home.
And that's actually how I got started to doing my Captain Courage story, because I think I don't know if you've heard about this challenge. There's a comic book challenge called 100 days of making comics, where you dedicate like 30 minutes or more a day. I think the minimum is 30 minutes, but just working on your comic. So I just started that, and I was just gonna do small comics, and like, oh, eventually I'll get to the Captain Courage, and then COVID started happening, and I was like, all right, well, I have time to work on it. I joined the Discord, and right away they're like, hey, we're doing an anthology. It's just 8-page minimum. You want to get your story in, get published, and we'll sell it at cost to people. So it's just to get your book out, and like, yeah, I can do this, and that's where I got I got my story in there. But that's when I started to see like the challenges and all that. So I mean, for that, I mean, I was able to get. I mean, now I have 3 stories that are in books, and I'm working on a 4th one right now that's going to be in the Christmas, the holiday edition.
Oh, nice.
Which is what I'm working on now, and I put some pages up on Instagram. Or I think it's like some snippets of what I'm doing. But then after that, I'm just gonna like take a break from the anthologies and actually work on my own book and see getting it crowdfunded and things like that. So
right.
So I am always interested when people have actually crowdfunded, whether it's successful or not, just to see what we're gonna get ourselves into.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry for the excessive blinking. My contacts are like getting dry over here.
Oh, that's why I just wear my goggles. So, anyways,
there we go. So what got you guys into comics? Like, what made you guys want to do comics?
Well, and I'll let you
Okay.
start it off.
Yeah, I've always been into drawing and kind of creative endeavors, random stuff, scribbling on just about anything that I could, sometimes even the walls when I was little, and drawing little characters. And I didn't know actually that much about the realm of comics as a little kid, but I did watch cartoons on like Saturday morning cartoon shows.
Right.
Like Sonic X and Ninja Turtles and, you know, all the Marvel DC stuff. And later on when I was in high school, that was about when I was starting to come up with ideas for a comic, because I wanted to do animation projects and maybe be an animator. But academically, it made more sense to like become a biologist or something. And I ended up choosing not to go down that route. So instead, I ended up doing comics, and I actually still want to pursue some animation stuff, but definitely going down the comic route for now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, animation is a whole different beast. Where it's just like definitely a little bit more time consuming.
Definitely. In comics,
oh yeah,
create keyframes and get the story.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, like I always liked drawing as a kid. I always liked the, you know, like the cartoons, movies. Back then, there wasn't like a lot of stuff like for like kind of like pushing comics, but you could still get comics in a grocery store. So I think one of my first I think the first comic that I ever bought, and it was an obscure comic. I think it was called Ralph. It was about this little obnoxious kid. I only bought one issue, but it was a 3D issue, and that's was like, man, this looks cool. So I bought it and I took it to summer school, and I'm just there with my 3D glasses, and I'm like, man, this is really cool. Like, and then I always read you know, the Garfield, Peanuts from the newspaper.
Oh, yeah.
So I knew about comics, and I had read comics. I never really thought about doing one till I think it was like in high school, but I always thought you had to have like this whole thing planned out, and I didn't really have everything planned out. So I just had little scribbles. And it wasn't until till like a couple of years ago where I just been following some creators, Scott Circlin. I found him because he does these things about comics, and he started doing the 100. No, he talked about the 100 days of making comics, and they talked about doing a comic course and all these other things. And I found out he does a video with a video show like this with two other guys, and the 48-hour art check. So I checked that out, and they're just like talking about comics, talking about all the stuff that goes into, and one of the things they're saying, just start, like
right, yeah,
just do something. And so I made my first mini comic, which I was putting up on Instagram, which you had commented on it.
Yeah,
The ironing tip, and
yeah.
So that was my first comic that I made myself, put it out, send it out to people. Anna has a copy. And it's just like a little, just printer paper that's just stapled together. So I was like, so from then on, you know, I'm gonna do this and keep doing it, and then just see. So I guess I'm a beginner to comics, but I've always loved comics, and I've always loved drawing, and you know, and not just superhero comics, but different types of comics. Like I would track down like all the little comic book shops, because back then there weren't as many here in the valley.
Yeah.
And there were like a little like mom and pop shops, like some went out of business. The only one that stuck out more is and you probably know it, John, Myth Adventures in
Oh yeah, is that still there?
It's still there.
Oh wow.
Yeah. uh, and then there's another one, Hobbies and Heroes, and they started doing little cons a few years ago. So I went to a couple of those, and I met Mike Gorell and I met Carlo Barberi, and I would ask him questions, and so it was like just getting that atmosphere of going to a con and talking to creators and like seeing that
Right.
hey, they're actually like they're people and they have like great stories and you can learn from them.
Yeah.
So,
You're like, hey, I can do this too.
yeah,
Right, that's a big thing.
yeah.
Especially,
And one of my inspirations. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But one of my inspirations for doing this, you know, we've talked about this before. I mean, Scott Circlin, Corey Kerr, a bunch of other people. But you, John, like watching you over the years, like posting on Facebook, posting on Instagram, talking about like, hey, I just went to a convention. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm drawing this. I was like, hey, you know what? He's a Valley guy like me. I mean, and I know where he started off. So like, you know, what? Maybe I can do it. And I think around that time I was like, I'm gonna get a little bit more serious with my art. So I started doing an art channel, and just like investing and just doing stuff a little bit more. So like, so yeah, like so. I mean, just watching you help me,
Oh, thanks,
and I
man.
hope.
That's cool. I'm glad I had a positive effect on you.
carry an influence.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm tearing up. I was joking. My contact.
That's why I wear the goggles so that you don't see me. And yeah, and that's my hope that I can influence someone in the same way I was influenced. So.
Right. Yeah. I think that's always there with like every artist, where you kind of you want to make people feel the way you felt when you experienced something like that for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I got throw libraries on the previous question too, because I really enjoyed going to the library growing up and reading through the comic section there.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's what I do now. Like with my daughters, they've been interested in comics because they see me making comics. So when we go to the library, like take them to the comic section, they'll get all excited about it. And my oldest, who is she's how old is she? 6? No, she's 7 now. She's
wow.
actually actually started like making comics, and it's just like one of those moments like as a parent where you just like kind of feel like all proud, might get a little misty eyed a little bit.
Nice.
There's even she'll draw some, like she'll be like, here daddy, here's like some monster wrestlers for you, and some of them are like really good, and there's a few that I've done this and I want to keep doing it. It's where I'll redraw them myself and I'll show her, because she loves that. Like I think I've redrawn like 3 of her monsters and turned them into Nightmare Pro Wrestling wrestlers, and she's like, oh wow.
Yeah, I think I've seen some of those too. And right now, I saw you just posted up a redesign of one of the wrestlers. It's a guy with a pumpkin head.
Oh yeah. It's Ivan Hollow. He's one of the main heels, one of the main bad guys in Nightmare Pro Wrestling. He's the leader of this group of pumpkin guys called the Pumpkin Boys, and they're kind of like these crazy hillbilly kind of characters,
like the Bushwhackers.
Maybe not as goofy as the Bushwhackers. But yeah, and that's something else I also believe, like getting your work out there, and if you think it needs a little bit of improvement because you want to add to it, I think you should do that. And the first design that I did of him, I liked a lot, but it didn't. Now I'm realizing in hindsight that it didn't evoke what I wanted. You know, like I want people to look at it and be like, "Oh, that's a cool monster. Oh, wait a minute, is he a pro wrestler?" You know, like the way he's dressed, the way he looks. So that's kind of like what I'm focusing on now. Like a lot of the characters, I'm gonna redesign them. So the first thing you think of is like, oh, that's a very cool and interesting design, and it's a design of a pro wrestler. You know what I mean? That's a monster, and those designs will probably come out like in the next set of books that I'm making, because I'm already writing for the next graphic novel of Dynamic Pro Wrestling. So,
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's cool. That's awesome.
Keep him busy.
So
yeah.
so we talked about monsters. Let's talk about wrestling. So who's your wrestling inspirations?
Wrestling inspirations. Oh, that's another good question. You guys are asking some good ones.
We are pros now.
Let's see. Let's see. Where do I start? Well, I love 80s pro wrestling. I think 80s pro wrestling is a lot of fun. Crazy characters, you know, super big, muscular Ultimate Warrior with all his craziness, Macho Man Randy Savage. That's probably like my favorite, one of my favorite eras. There's the Attitude Era with like The Rock and Stone Cold and all of that. But I think as a teenager, I loved that because it was like shock TV of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Looking at it now, they had some good matches during that time, but nothing was very great. I think the best wrestling is happening like right now. There's a lot of stuff in Japan that I'm watching, like New Japan Pro Wrestling and All Japan, and some of the older stuff that they do there. There is some WWE stuff, which is the bigger promotion. Also trying to explain it to Anna, just in case if she doesn't know much about wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
But the bigger promotion is WWE, and then they have an off branch that's supposedly their developmental wrestling organization called NXT. But NXT is the better show now, which I think is interesting, or at least for me. So I watch a lot of NXT. There's also a brand of NXT called NXT UK that takes place in the UK, and that's also really good. So those are the two main shows that I watch. I don't watch the main WWE shows. But if we're talking about favorite wrestlers, I would have to say Macho Man is there. Ultimate Warrior is definitely there. Let's see. Of course, The Rock and like that era, Stone Cold, Triple H, all of that. Yeah. Nowadays, though, there's some really good British wrestlers that are like my favorite wrestlers. Like there's these three guys they call themselves British Strong Style, and it's Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate, and Trent Seven. And those guys, I can watch them wrestle like forever. They have like, I haven't seen a bad match yet, you know.
Wow, cool.
There's a wrestler also that was wrestling in NXT UK that's actually an American, and his name is Chris Hero, and he's been like in indie wrestling like for a very long time. He goes to WWE, they put him in NXT, and he's doing good work there. But when he goes to NXT UK, I feel like that was his best work. And then when COVID happened, they let him go, unfortunately. But the cool thing is, I actually got to meet him one time. He asked me to do some artwork for him, and I sent it to him, and he's like, "Oh, that he also wanted like some other artwork." And there's actually a video where they're interviewing him in his house, and he has all this wrestling memorabilia. And there's a really good shot of like a picture I made for him, like in a frame. And I had some friends pointing it out to me, like, "Hey, look, check out this video. Your art's in it." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then on Instagram, I was like, "Hey, I'm going to a show. Who's gonna be there?" And I was just asking my friends that I knew, but he responds and he's like, "Hey, man, want to get backstage? Just let me know and send me a message, and bring some of your artwork and I'll sign it." So that was pretty cool because he's one of my favorite wrestlers. And so I got to hang out with him for a little bit. He's a lot taller than than I thought, but maybe I'm just short. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the long answer for your question of, oh, which wrestler do you like?
Well, that's really cool, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you do? Was that the guy? I remember. I think it was on Facebook. You did a commission for a wrestler. So was that?
That's another wrestler that I also enjoy. There's actually been a few that have asked for some commissions and T-shirt designs. There's another one called Simon Gotch that also has like a very like interesting, more like old school wrestler kind of style, like catch wrestling. He asked for some T-shirt designs, and he commissioned me for those. And he's a really cool guy too. Like he'll message me also about that. One of my biggest regrets though was there's a group in the main WWE shows called New Day, and one of them called Xavier Woods, he actually direct messaged me on Twitter, and he's like, "Hey, we're doing this like cereal that we're doing called Bootios." It was something they would say. They would say Bootios, and they wanted to make like an actual cereal box design for like a T-shirt and for a product, and they asked me if I could do it. And I was like, yeah, like I didn't even know like how much to charge because I was so excited. And then I did all this design work and I sent it to them.
Do it for free.
I was not gonna do it for free. And he was really cool because he did want to pay me. So
that's always good.
And not that the other wrestlers didn't; they paid me too, right? But anyway, I sent him all this work, and he says that he loves it. But then he's like, "Oh, that they can't use my work because it turns out that the company has their in-house artists, and they have to go through their in-house artists."
Oh.
And I was like, I was bummed about it because then that turned into a big thing. The whole Bootios thing. There was even like a pay-per-view in WrestleMania where there's a giant Bootios box and they came out of it. And I was like, oh man, just imagine if it was my artwork on that giant box. But yeah. I still have those tweets and that I look at every now and then. I'm like, if only.
What could have been. We actually got a few good questions here. So Judd Goswick asked, how much do you plan the cards / matches, and how much is organic as you work?
The matches, I plan out everything. Like I have my main wrestlers and main characters, and I know who I want like for the main like for the big match at the end of the story. I know where I want it to go. Okay. So wrestling is a very unique art form in itself, which I think also has like a connection like to comics in a way, like because there's the main story, then you get the wrestlers in the ring, and then there's that story of what's happening in the ring, So what I do is I know where I want to go, and I'll plan out each match that will create the path to where I want to go.
Okay.
And within there, I also create like like let's say two characters are fighting. One guy's a big muscular guy. The other guy's like a little skinny monster. And like I'll plan out like, oh, okay, here's where the character that I want at the end of the story, here's where he gets hurt, and that's going to affect him in the other matches, which is going to make it more, which is going to make the end of the story even better, because I can call back to that and be like, oh, he got hurt, and the readers will be like, oh, I remember when that happened. Like, how is he going to get out of this? And you can create excitement with that. So with all of those things, like I do plan them all out. Especially now that I'm hiring artists. My original way of writing actually was I used to just thumbnail everything. That's the way I would write. You know, like, oh, this scene needs some of this. This person needs to be turned this certain way. This monster needs to be doing this by this page. When I started working with other artists, I realized, oh, wait, I'm going to have to write words so they can understand me. So
thumbnails like this.
Yeah. That's what I used to write.
Something a little sketchier.
Yeah, like a bunch of like thumbnails and everything like that. Yeah. But now I actually have to write like scripts, so I have to plan out everything and make sure. And the way I think about that is, how would I want a script? You know, give them the way to do what they want, because you're hiring them because you like what they do, but at the same time give them guidelines and as much reference and information as you would want or you think that they need. Yeah, I would say just plan, or at least I do. I plan everything out and just get like to get from point A to point B, and make sure I hit the beats in every story, in every match that needs to be hit, so I can get to where I want to go.
Okay, cool. We got a question from Resident 76. What are some of the ways you have seen your fan base grow over the years?
Let's see. Back when I was doing the original comic, I saw a lot of the same people that I knew from. I saw like repeat people coming to conventions looking for me, and I thought that was exciting. You know, like people would come up to me like that I met like the year before or 2 years ago, and they would be like, "Oh, what do you got? You know, what's new? What's going on with the comic and all this other stuff?" And they'd come back just to buy the comic and buy the next issue. To the point where there was one year, like my last year, I didn't have a lot of new stuff, and a lot of the people that enjoy the comic would come up to me and be like, "Oh, you don't have anything new?" And I was like, "No, sorry." And they'd be like, "Oh, I'd be kind of disappointed." And they would commission a sketch at least, or they would buy like an art print. But yeah, it was nice to actually see it growing like at conventions, and having to start from scratch again with this new version of it. I haven't been able to go to conventions yet because everything is going on, right? But
why? What's going on?
The fan interaction has been great too. Like people are leaving comments and being like, "Oh, this is really cool. I'm really enjoying this," and all this other stuff. So yeah, that's the way I've been seeing it. Like online with comments, and with the old incarnation, with fans showing up at conventions and looking for me and asking for new stuff. So.
Cool. Have fans cosplayed as your characters?
Not yet. And when that happens, I'll be like, okay, that's it. I've made it.
Have you gotten fan art?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of fan art actually, which is that's another thing. I have gotten a lot of fan art with the old again with the old comics. I used to get a lot of fan art, and with these new comics, I've already been getting fan art, and that's been really cool. And what I want to do is in between breaks of the comic posting up online, I would like to gather up all the recent fan art and just post that up, and just let those guys like get attention for doing the fan art.
Oh, cool! Yeah, we've gotten a couple of fan arts just from doing this show, and I posted them on Instagram. So it always feels great when you get a fan art, and I've gotten a few fan art of Captain Courage, but it's like the first time that we're getting fan art of ourselves. Yeah, and we got another question here. I don't know, this might cause some problems. Let's just go. In your universe of the comic story, is the wrestling real or fake, like in real life?
Oh,
Controversy.
I don't understand the question. No, in the book, wrestling's real. Like in this world, in this monster world, the biggest thing is pro wrestling, and it's real.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, how how all the chocolates and everything are like so important to everybody, where they're all trying to get that golden ticket, and they're willing like to kidnap people so they can get the last box of Wonka bars, that kind of stuff. That's the way this world is. Like people are like like kidnapping each other to get the last ticket to go watch Nightmare Pro Wrestling, that kind of thing.
Oh wow.
Oh boy.
Is
So intense.
I remember in your first incarnation of the story, I think one of the main characters was Grave.
Yeah.
Is he in this version too?
Yeah, he's still in this version also. He's one of the characters that is carried over. Him and his tag team partner Lobo are still in this comic, and they're two of the main characters now. But a big difference with the original version and this version, which I'm surprised I didn't do earlier, was the original version actually has a narrative of two characters going to become wrestlers and their life as they go through becoming wrestlers. And the new version, it's like you're watching a wrestling show, and the stories are happening like in the ring, or when they're interviewing monsters, or that kind of stuff. And I think that is closer to what I originally wanted to accomplish, but didn't click until this version of the comic.
Yeah, because I remember just from the stuff you would put out, there's a scene or a couple of panels, and I think Grave had just finished a fight, and he's in the back like in a hot tub just soaking his bones, and I thought like, man, this is actually pretty interesting. Like it's actually showing what how real athletes go through, like after a fight or after a game or something. Like they gotta like take care of their bodies, and I think like there was like some kind of dialogue.
The comic isn't very serious. Like it's fun. I try to make sure that it's fun. I want it to be all ages, Halloween cartoon special, kind of fun. Simpsons Treehouse of Horror fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is a response to the last question about wrestling being fake. So there's stuff I could say, but let's just go to this comment. I like that you use the golden rule when working with your artists, so that's cool. Yeah, treat your artists good.
Yeah,
like treat others the way you want to be treated.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Oh wow, we're actually about to hit the hour. We usually go for an hour. I know you're tired, so you probably want to get to bed. So we're gonna just to wrap up. John, where can we find your stuff?
You can find the Nightmare Pro Wrestling comic at nightmareprowrestling.com. I'm on Instagram at Jon David Guerra, and the Nightmare Pro Wrestling Instagram is also there, and it's at Nightmare Pro Wrestling. Also, I'm on Twitter, same name, and on Facebook also, Nightmare Pro Wrestling. It's on Facebook.
All right, and you can find a link to the to Nightmare Pro Wrestling and also to John's Instagram and to John's old YouTube channel, which you can see some speed painting on there, some speed art.
Oh yeah, I used to review episodes of wrestling, and I would give like, comments and critiques, and I would draw like all of my favorite moments that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that after Monday Night Raw or something. Like next day, you'd be drawing that match. And, all right, and Anna, where can we find your stuff?
Hey, on YouTube and on Instagram. I've got a Linktree that's up on the screen right there, and I have some things that I'm working on behind the scenes. And on top of that, I'm also working on college homework, working on the final project. So it's been kind of busy. Bear with me.
Yeah, Anna actually is going to art school, but she's about to finish. She's about to graduate really, really soon. So.
Oh, nice.
College.
So hopefully you don't have debt, Anna, because I hear that's a big thing. Because I didn't go to art school. I'm self-taught, or like I say, God taught me. So as a
that was a big thing, was if I was going to have to deal with debt, because I'm already a very self-motivated, self-taught kind of person. Going to college was a little bit of an extra thing, and more like if I wanted to get like a job doing something that was loosely related to art or not related at all. But getting through without debt is an important thing. It's difficult to do for a lot of people, though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that's cool too. Like every artist has their own path. There's not one right path.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. And if you guys want to check out the link tree there for the Turaco CreativeCast, we have a Teespring store where you can get shirts of the logo and mugs and stuff like that. So my stuff is up there too. I have a T-shirt that says "Make Comics, Not Excuses," so you can get that. And you can check out my stuff on my link tree and my channels there, my Instagram. I just got a BitChute, so I've been putting some of my more recent videos I've been putting on YouTube on there. So you want to check that out. And I also have a Ko-fi account or Ko-fi. I've heard both ways. So if you still want to donate something, support the channel. And if you donate anything, I'll send you some free PDFs in your email. So you get some PDF comics in exchange for a donation. And that's it for the show. If you're not subscribed to us, please subscribe. Subscribe to Anna, subscribe to myself. And also just a reminder, I forgot to say this at the beginning. Anna and I are doing this challenge where we can get Anna to 100 subs. And the original goal was also getting myself to 200 subs, but I already reached my goal, and people have actually been calling me out for it. But we have a challenge when we get Anna to 100 subs. Also, our other co-host, Keith Harper, who couldn't be here, and you can also find his channel on his Linktree. If we can get both of them to 100 subs, Anna and I will be eating some bugs on a live stream, and we're actually gonna like prepare them off screen, and we have like a whole show plan. Now people have been calling me out because, hey, you already reached your goal. Like, okay, well, yeah, but all three of us have to reach our goal. So so subscribe if you want to see that. Check it out, and Make Comics, Not Excuses, and also Judd Goswick says make a comic about excuses. which
I should do
if
that.
done in an interesting way, you can take any topic, anything mundane and boring, and turn it into a very interesting comic. And I am proof of that because in the pulp edition of the 9-Volt Anthology, one of my stories, it's a comic about the Shadow making orange juice. That's it, and people love that story.
Man.
So check it out. And I think Judd bought that book too, so he can attest to that.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
And Gib says, "Go buy a shirt." All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for coming in. We had a lot of good chats. Thanks to our guest John for dropping by.
Mhm.
Catch you later, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
See ya.